The thing that concerns me is, I would say, even for myself, my generation, the likes, like the what you're describing is a portion of my life, but for the generation after me, it's some of those kids, it's like all of their life, like it is this all they know. Do you think it's going to reach a boiling point, or do you think that it needs action, like direct action with it?
So my optimistic theory is this moment that we've emerged in it, roughly the last decade, where we see the emergence of these giant platform monopolies built on these attention economy models. So the Facebook and the Instagrams, the Twitters, and now TikTok has entered that fray. The idea where this is this dominant piece of our technological and cultural lives, I don't think it's a permanent state. I actually think the position of cultural dominance that these platforms has is quite precarious. They probably are already past their peak of cultural influence. They just don't realize it yet. And in other words, what I'm saying is 5 or 10 years from now, I don't think we're going to have 3 or 4 giant social media companies and everyone spends their time using those social media networks. It's a particular moment in time that we're going to move past. One of my big arguments for why this is the case is the social media companies, they originally had a network effect argument. So their argument was, if you're Facebook in 2012, is you want to connect to people you know. You can do that over the internet. Facebook makes it easy though. We have this very nice interface and most of the people you know are on Facebook. And so we have a sort of monopoly, because I'm not going to join another network if my cousin's not on there, but if my cousin's on here, then that's useful, right? So they have this network effect benefit. And they were offering something that was pretty unique, which was, we have the internet enables connections around the world. Let's make sense of that, make it easy for you to connect to people. They left that model. Right around 2012, where they shifted. This is when they shifted from trying to build their user base to try to get more active user minutes from their user base. They had to do this because they're going public. They had to get their revenue numbers higher, so the initial public offering would be better received. They brought on Sheryl Sandberg to figure out how to do this, and they shifted away from this model of Facebook as a place to connect to the people you know, and they shifted to the newsfeed model. Okay, it's going to be a source of distraction. You all are just in our matrix style factory producing content and data for free. We will chop it all up with algorithms, create this hyper palatable slurry of newsfeed type nuggets, and you can just infinitely scroll past them. So we are something you can tap when you're bored, and our algorithms have selected the stuff. So again, like the matrix, we pulled it out of the minds of hundreds of millions of users and we chopped it up, and it's optimized to press some buttons and you'll feel something and it'll be distracting and whatever. This made sense in the short term because now you could use Facebook all the time. Like it's something that's always there. It's not just, I need to see, if Jordan has posted something on his wall, let me go to his wall. No, it's like this feed is always here. Instagram has the same model. TikTok just threw off all the social aspects and just like, let's purify this model. The issue is now they're competing with every other source of entertainment. So it's no longer, we offer something that no one else can, which is the people you know are here and will connect you to it. It's like, no, this is a source of entertainment. There's other sources of entertainment though, like what you're doing right now, podcasting, right? Okay, I can find a podcast on something I really care about, people I care about, talking about people I care about. Look at the streamer wars. Hundreds of billions of dollars being invested into incredibly low cost to view super high production value movies and TV shows and series, and all of this stuff is on our fingertips now. And what happened to digital online connection? Well, everyone just moved that over to text message threads. Yeah, they're like, okay, I guess I'll use either WhatsApp, which is why Facebook bought it, or text message threads. I don't really need a special network to do that anymore. So I think social media is a very precarious place. The people Twitter and Facebook like touches some buttons and it's hyper palatable, but I also like this podcast I'm listening to, and I also like, the Marvel stuff on Disney Plus, and it's competing with that. And actually this stuff feels a little bit better quality, and this stuff is kind of making me feel bad. So that's my optimism. I'm not bullish on the future of these particular giant platforms as like for the next 50 years are going to be dominating our discourse.
No, I completely agree. When you talk about Facebook, like I feel like with my group of friends and maybe even my generation, it just snapped like that. It went completely overnight. Just switching on to something else. I heard you talk about this on the Lex Fridman was intrinsic versus extrinsic motivations, which really interesting to me.
Well, it comes up a lot in motivational psychology. It's one of the foundational ideas of motivational psychology, which is this notion, they call it the locus of control, but basically when you feel like a difficult action is being undertaken because you chose to, you can tolerate that difficulty much better than if you feel like you were forced into it or was someone else's decision. And now you're facing difficulty. We feel this intuitively, right? If you're doing something that's hard and it really wasn't your choice to be doing it, we get incredibly frustrated. So you have to drive across town to pick something up. You don't want to do it. Really, someone kind of dropped the ball and they were like, you have to, they forgot something and now you have to return and whatever, go back to your kid's school or something to pick something up, and you get stuck in traffic. It's like much more frustrating than I'm going across town to get to the gym. I part of my workout routine. You're frustrated about the traffic, but your just hardship was based on something you were doing, you chose to do. Or, similarly, you go through an elite military training. You chose to do it. You're doing it for a really good reason. You can put up with all the hardship and pain of it in a way that if you're encountering that hardship and pain because of a natural disaster, so you're marching to get away from the hurricane, not because you're part of military, it feels much worse, etc. So it's an important principle to keep in mind when thinking about doing hard things, is we can do very hard things, but the rationale really matters. So it's not, hard work is not just we have a certain amount of substance to spend and who cares how we spend it. No, the amount we have, the energy we have to spend on hard task is very influenced by why we're doing the hard task. And so it's a hack in some sense, but also I think it's much more fundamental. People who do really hard things, you better believe they're tapping from that reserve of, these are things I chose to do for good reasons, because if it feels extrinsic, I'm making my parents happy, or my boss put this on me and I don't even know why I'm doing it, you have way less energy to draw from.
Yeah, again, another thing we see a lot of is, I'm not happy doing this. My mum and my dad are forcing me to do this. I really don't want to keep doing this. So you're saying the idea of choice is really key to longevity.
Yeah, and where this I really encountered this first was when I was writing those student books, and I was dealing with a lot of students, and I was dealing with students at elite schools. So I was at MIT at the time doing my PhD, and so I was dealing with MIT students and Harvard students, which were nearby, and I would just help students, right? And I kept noticing this phenomenon that I call deep procrastination, where essentially the student would snap and just couldn't do work anymore, like no work. Like, your paper is due, it's worth half your grade, like, I just can't do it. And the professor's like, all right, I'll give you an extension, but you're going to fail this course if you don't do this paper. And they have nothing else, they just can't do it, right? They just snap. And I called it deep procrastination. What tended to cause it? Because it sounds a little bit like depressive syndrome, but it wasn't quite depression. It was different, right? They weren't ahedonic. They just couldn't do the work. What was going on in a lot of these cases was, the courses were very hard. They were because they're at MIT. They're doing really hard courses, right? It's hardship. And they were doing them, it was like a major because their parents wanted them to do it. They were there because they were, I got to grind through this so I can get this job as a doctor because that's what my parents want me to do. And it was a clash of hardness versus lack of intrinsic motivation. And their mind just shut down. Like, nope, we're not doing it anymore. And so then I invented this whole program. I called it the Romantic Scholar, this whole program to help sidestep that, where basically, in some sense, I was helping people hack their brains, students hack their brains, where I had them inject all of these things into their life that signaled to themselves that they intrinsically valued what they were studying. So it was things like, start going to talks. Like when people come for, if you're a math major, like when mathematicians come to give talks, like, go to the talks. There's no reason for you to be there from like a grade standpoint. It's not part of your classes, but go to the talks. Read books by people in your field, just for your own leisure. Like I read about these type of scientists, or if I'm an English major, I read biographies of it. Find different ways and settings to do your work that's more inspiring. And I wrote this essay back then called Heidegger with Hefeweizen. I was like, go to a pub and have the book, and there's a fire, and have a pint, and in other words, like, do all of these things because it will signal to yourself, I like the life of the mind, I like academia, I like college, these ideas have intrinsic value outside of just grades and what job it's going to open up. And it was a inoculation against deep work. you built a lifestyle of enjoyment and gratitude and investment of personal energy into what you're studying, suddenly you can study a heck of a lot more of that material without burning out and without procrastinating. So that type of hack, I think, applies for almost any type of work. Build a lifestyle around it that signals to yourself that I love this world, I take this world seriously, I value this world, I am gracious for the opportunity to actually be a part of this world and contribute something. You'll get a lot more done.